Hey, this is David Hayter. You may know me as the screenwriter of films like X-Men, X-Men 2, and Watchmen, but you probably know me best as the voice of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And you're listening to Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Casanova Podcast. Kept you waiting, huh?
Doing? Welcome everyone to this is an actual special episode of the podcast. This is a collaboration crossover of my two podcasts because it's going to go on both, but for the Casanova Podcast and for Decked Up. I lost train of thought. Yeah, it's a collaboration podcast. Anyways, it's early in the morning here in Hawaii. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. Anyways, I have a special guest here from Good Vibes Gaming, good friend of mine. We've been trying to do this for a long while. None other than the one and only Ash Paulsen. Ash, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm much better now. I'm finally getting to do this here with you. We've been trying to make this happen with our crazy schedules for the better part of a year now. Honestly, it's a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. So we're finally doing it, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
It's an honor to have you on. Yeah, it's been a better part of the year. I think every time it's for us, it's typically either work or something pops up, and it's like we finally got to do this. It's an honor to have you on. And what have you been up to lately? I know you've got a crazy schedule, but what's going on?
I do. Well, I as you know, I co-run GVG with my fellow GVG co-founders, but I also that alone doesn't pay the bills. So I live in LA. A little bit expensive to live here, so I also have a full-time day job on top of that thankfully is remote. I'm able to work from home. It's very flexible, so it fits around GVG. So it is a lot to do, but I'm very thankful that I have a day job that not only helps me pay my bills, but is super flexible in terms of allowing me to have the time I need to grow GVG, manage the Patreon, manage the community, stuff like that.
Yeah, you say you live in LA. Like every time I visit there, and I'm like, how do people live there? It's so expensive.
It is. I mean, I couldn't do it by myself. My wife and I split all the the rent and bills and everything. So believe me, if I was single, unless I won the lottery or I was some sort of I had some amazingly well-paying job, I could not afford to live in the place that I do in LA. So it is entirely down to the fact that I'm incredibly lucky, have an amazing partner. We split rent, and we're able to in so doing, afford to live in where we live in LA. So we're very lucky.
The last time I went to LA, I think it was E3 2019. And when I went there, I want to say PDP, they gave me my pass to go. And so they didn't give me a hotel or anything. They just said hey, here's your pass, and try to get somewhere close to the convention center. I was like, where? They're like, it's fine. I'm like, what about this hotel that's near the airport? They're like, oh yeah, that's fine. You can get there in a couple of minutes.
That's not fine. No, a couple of minutes. What? Who clearly they do not have experience in LA, because that is not a couple of minutes from the airport to the convention center. What?
Yeah, that was like an hour from the hotel to there. And then when we got there the day of, we didn't, so my wife and I, we didn't know. We should have gotten there the day prior to E3 2019. We were told it's fine. Just, you can show up the day of, you can get your ticket, and your passes.
No. I always go to the early bird badge pickup for E3 because it is so much easier than trying to do it on day one with a stampede of people going into the expo hall. Whoever is giving you LA advice, not a good person to get LA advice from. Just ask me next time. I'll set it straight. Don't worry about it. There are so many people who will talk about LA as though it's like a monolith. Like, oh yeah, I live in LA, or I live in LA, but then you find out they live in Anaheim, and it's like Anaheim is not LA. That's Orange County. Or it'll be, oh yeah, I live in LA, and it's like Santa Monica, which is technically part of LA County, but it's not. If you just say in LA, that can mean so many different things. It's such a big city, and it comprises such a large area. I love it here, but it definitely I think there's some bad travel advice going around out there for people in
So as far as like this year with gaming,
LA.
there's been a lot of heavy hitters that have come out. What have
Yes.
been the games that you have been enjoying the most? I know
Oh
you've been
man,
playing Sonic Frontiers.
I
I know you've been
have.
loving that.
I'm having such a good time with it. That Sonic Frontiers is the definition of like a 7 or 8 out of 10 game that has obvious jank. It is clear to see how
Mhm.
not easily, but how much it can be improved in certain ways in a follow up. But despite that, the highs are so high in that game. Like it gets certain things about what I want from a Sonic game or a modern Sonic game so right. And so I can overlook some of the jank, and it's got that usual Sonic team level of jank, right? But I'm okay
Mhm.
with that because what makes Sonic so special is nailed really well in this particular game. Forces made me feel nothing. I walked away from that game feeling absolutely nothing. Frontiers makes me feel things, good things, and I'm having a great time with it. I'm in the third island now. Just got to the third island and just trucking along. And I'm finding it to be a very hard game to put down, despite the issues.
Do you feel like when I was playing it, I felt like it was the Sonic Adventure 3 that we never got.
You know what? That's exactly. I was saying something very along those lines to I can't remember who yesterday. It was actually no, I think it was during our hangout with our executive producer patrons. We do 2 hangouts
Mhm.
a month for our Good Vibes Gaming Patreon, and I was talking about how playing Sonic Frontiers makes me feel very much like I did when I first played Sonic Adventure One. It felt like an exciting new era of Sonic. Sure, you can see the jank there. Sure, the controls are a little wonky, but just the whole vibe of it, like the fact that we're returning to this adventure era lore and continuity and anime style vibe. It's just I'm loving it so much, and putting Ian Flynn in charge of the writing and the story was obviously the right
Oh
move because we're
yes.
getting
Yeah.
genuinely great character writing now. We're getting just amazing callbacks to lore that happened decades ago, and Adventure 2, even Shadow the Hedgehog, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like and like there's like a direct callback to the classic games, just casually and directly linking the classic to the modern games. And this is what I've wanted for Sonic to return to for so long, because I'm just a massive nerd and I care way too much about the lore of the things I'm into. So like I love Sonic lore, I love Mega Man lore. Like I love when the games pay attention to the stuff that they set up in prior games, and we kind of got away from that for a while with games like
Yeah.
Colors and Forces and what have you. But we're finally back to that, and
Mhm.
taken and that like taken in tandem with just stuff like boosting around the open zones as Sonic feels so good. It feels perfect to me. Like it's so empowering. They made such a good decision not limiting boost too much and just letting
Mhm.
you almost freely just boost around as much as you want. And especially when you max out on rings and you've got your max
Oh
speed,
yeah.
it feels so good. And this is just what I've wanted from Sonic for so long. And then of course the music. I mean, Sonic always hits with the
Yes.
music, but Tomoya Otani he kind of dabbled in the whole EDM thing in Forces, and
Mhm.
I liked it because I'm a big fan of EDM. But now he's not dipping his toes anymore. He's cannonball right into the deep end of the EDM pool, and I'm so here for it for the cyberspace levels. So good. I'm having a great time with it despite the issues.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that whatever Sonic team or Sega does going forward with Sonic, let this be the foundation.
I agree.
You
Yeah.
know, because it's like we don't want to go back to Forces at all. Like
No,
no,
no, we
don't
don't.
don't touch that again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I do hope
but
we
yeah,
get some sort of follow up to Mania, though. I don't know that Sonic Team are able to do it. I think they would need to get Christian Whitehead and his team back, and I know they're not doing
yeah,
that right now. But I just want so, and I feel like in any other timeline that made sense, we would have already had a follow up to Mania because it's been like five
yes,
years now.
5 years.
And
Yeah,
God, I love what they're doing with Frontiers. I'm not one of those people who's like classic Sonic only, modern Sonic sucks. No, it's modern Sonic can be great, as we're seeing now with Frontiers, but I do want both. One doesn't replace the other, and I really want another genuinely great 2D Sonic game like Mania. So here's hoping we'll get one.
yeah, and that's actually very interesting. Like I've seen a lot, like when it comes to a lot of reviews from some of the Sonic fans that are purely like classics only. Like they don't even like any aspect of Sonic Frontiers. And I'm like, how can you not like,
I don't get
especially
that.
if you liked adventure, even if you like Sonic Heroes, God forbid you like Shadow the Hedgehog
Yeah,
that game. But
yeah,
you know, like if you liked any of those games and some of the Boost era titles, like how do you not like Frontier? Yeah, yes, it has the jank, you know,
right.
and yeah, the texture pop in, all the other stuff, but it's genuinely fun. Like I haven't played a Sonic game since Mania that just engrossed me as much as this one has. Like I was
Same.
having a hard time putting the Switch down, and then I ended up picking it up on the PlayStation 5, and I'm like, man, I can't stop playing it. And
Yeah,
like you and I, you know, we review games all the time, and it's really hard for us to get that enraptured in a game like
right.
that. Like so it's
I
yeah.
mean, the last Sonic game before Mania that I got super 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 into was Sonic Generations, and that came out over a decade ago. And Generations is
Yeah.
still a great game. I think it holds up incredibly well, and it may still be my favorite modern Sonic game or 3D Sonic game. Not sure, but I mean, again, it is kind of like combination 3D 2D. But I mean, it's been 11 years now since
Yeah.
Generations came out, and in that time, I haven't had another Sonic game, or at least another modern Sonic game, engrossed me this much. To be fair, there was really only Forces, but Forces was just such a wet fart that, you know, the less said about that, the better. Really, the only good thing about it was the soundtrack. But yeah, I just, it feels so good to be excited about a modern Sonic game again. And I wasn't sure if Sonic Team could pull it off, and they did. And they've proven that they have the chops to do it still. And I think that this definitely should be the foundation for what Sonic does going forward. Build on this, and then let's actually get the Adventure 3 that fans
Yeah.
have been wanting for so long. Because as much as I get why they kind of took the hard turn toward just having Sonic playable instead of all of his friends, because it was getting a little bit too diluted. I get that. At the same time, I think we've gone a little bit too far the other way. I at
Mhm.
least want to play as Tails and Knuckles, maybe Shadow
Yes.
and Amy, but definitely I want to have a fully playable campaign for Tails and Knuckles as well. Those are
Yeah.
the three of them to me are like equally as obviously Sonic is the most important, but I feel like you almost can't have Sonic without Tails and Knuckles. The others, that's fine. Maybe we don't need Shadow and Rouge and Amy and everybody, but just give me a fully playable Tails and Knuckles. That's all I ask.
You don't want Silver the Hedgehog?
Oh, God. Iblis Trigger. He got a little better. He got a little better in some of the other spinoffs he was in. Like, I guess the Rivals games on PSP, he was less annoying,
Yeah.
but God, I hated that character in Sonic 06 so much. The one scene where Shadow like kicks him in the face is like my favorite scene in that entire game, and I've watched that cutscene an embarrassing number of times. I love it so much.
Okay, if you want to hear something wild, I saw one review where the guy said that Sonic Frontiers is worse than Sonic '06. I'm like, there's no
That's a
way.
take. That's a take. How do you even look? I'm all for people having their own opinions. I would never call someone's opinion stupid or whatever, but come on. Are you serious right now? Sonic 06 better than Frontier? I can't. I can't. I can't even. I don't know. I don't even know. That's like saying, oh, Sonic 4 was actually better than Sonic Mania. What? That's like the same thing. That's the same thing, just in the 2D version of it. That's literally the same thing. I don't get it. I don't understand some takes out there.
No. I noticed that you're also like a fellow Mega Man fan like myself.
Oh
When
yeah.
are we gonna get Rockman Volnut off the moon? We've been waiting since 2000 for
I
Mega Man
know.
Legends 3. They constantly tease us. I was the main reason I got a 3DS back in 2011
Yep.
was for that.
Yeah.
Uh,
It breaks my heart. I don't know. We got so close, and it's not even Volnut, not even just Volnut. Like it felt for a while like there was a groundswell around the X series, and like they were,
mhm.
it seemed like maybe we were finally going to get X9. That still hasn't materialized. And like here's the thing, like Hirokazu Tsuchiya mentioned like 3 years ago now that they were already working on the next big mainline game, next big mainline Mega Man game, whatever that turns out to be. They said they were already working on it, but then that was like 3 years ago, and still all we've got is the Battle Network Legacy Collection, and that was only announced like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So I get COVID obviously derail things, but I'm like, they've said they're happy with the performance of 11 with all the collections. So where's 12? Where's like X9? Where's anything really? Like I don't understand. Like I thought we were finally on the over that long gap of no games. I thought we were kind of on the right end of things now, and we have gotten the collections, and that's great. We're getting
Yeah.
Battle Network. That's cool. But like, where's another new Mega Man game? Like, where's 12? Like, as much as I liked 11, it was very safe, and I'd love to see a Mega
Yeah.
Man 12 take the foundation 11 built and then just make it a little bit more like Mega Man 5, 6, 7, multiple pass through levels, hidden collectibles, multiple Wily castles. Like, I want to see a bigger, better Mega Man 12 and bolder Mega Man 12.
Yeah, I was actually shocked that we never got any like DLC for Mega Man 11, like for anything. Like
Yeah,
no additional
no Proto
characters.
Man. Yeah, I have to wonder if they had plans to do DLC and maybe they were scrapped. But like Proto Man didn't even show up in Mega Man 11, and that was just so weird. Neither did Base, and it's just like that seems like such a wasted potential, especially after they were DLC in 10. So
Yeah.
or Base was. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, 11 was very safe. It was great, but very safe. And I would love to see a 12 that just is, like I said, bigger, better, and bolder, and just is a little bit longer, and as Uni would say, meatia. So we'll we'll see. I really hope that they do something soon with Mega Man, because what's weird too is we know from the Capcom Giga Leak there's something called Rockman Tyson that still
Yep.
hasn't come out. And one thing that a lot of people who covered the Giga Leak missed was that there are actually references in there to Rockman 12. And it was
Mhm.
originally slated to come out around the last wave of Street Fighter V's DLC. Obviously, that didn't happen. So,
Mhm.
was it canceled like a billion other Mega Man games? Is it still in development and just got delayed by COVID? Where is it? We know that it at least existed at one point, and it's killing me. I don't know.
It's yeah. We Capcom, we need something because like at this point, I mean, I love the collections, but I want something new.
Yeah,
Like the nostalgia is only going to take me so far. Like
yeah.
one of my favorite Mega Mans is Mega Man X2, and that was something as a kid. Like I used to rent that and Mega Man X3 all the time to the
Oh,
point
nice.
where, like, when I finally was able to buy it, which was crazy enough. I know this is insane. Where I have it, I think it is right here. So I went to GameStop
Uh-huh.
and they were selling this complete in box,
Wow.
$30, bro.
What?
Literally
$30 for that?
with yeah. The guy was like, yeah, I don't know. He just put the clearance sticker on there, and I was like,
Yeah, I would too. Jeez, that's like seeing a copy of Chrono Trigger and guys like, $25. Okay, sure. Sign me up.
like
That's
literally,
incredible.
like when I, 'cause I think this is during COVID. So like when I, well, so we're still in COVID, but like
Yeah.
2020. So like when I went to GameStop, I was with my wife, and I was like, I grabbed it. I was like looking around. I'm like, am I being punked or something? It's like, what's going on?
That's
Like seriously.
fantastic.
So like like some of I brought that up mainly to say like I've been playing some of the fan ROM hacks. Like there's the relocalization for X2, which is really great. The Zero project for Mega Man X3 is phenomenal. I
Oh,
don't
it's
know if you
cool.
got the chance.
It
Like
is cool.
that
Yeah.
is so good. I'm like, man, if we actually had that back in 95, oh my goodness.
It might have made X4 a little less impactful, though. I'm almost
True.
glad that they waited to give Zero his full playable debut for when he had his own full story campaign too, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm almost glad they waited, but yeah, I mean it you got a taste of it with X3. And what's funny is like I don't know, I guess I was always a little bit more immune to the Zero hype than most because like I love Zero. I think he's a 10 out of
Mhm.
10. Well, no, he's like a 15 out of 10 character. I love Zero. But X is my boy. X is my favorite character of all time from anything. So he's like an 100 out of 10 for me. So like as much as I love Zero and like he's super cool in X1 and X1 is primarily about X, finding himself and becoming as powerful and then exceeding Zero by the end. Like I always felt perfectly happy just playing as X. Like Zero was a cool bonus for me in X3, and I was like, oh, this is great. But I'm fine playing as X, and I've always been that way. So like to me, they're like the best duo in gaming. But and I wouldn't want to have either of them without the other. But I'm also like X is I'm all about X by the end of the day. So that's why I want so badly an X9 that directly follows up from X8. And like, what are they going to make Axel a villain, or would they actually go all the way in on that and follow through on whatever Lumine did to Axel at the end of X8? I'd like to think they would, but it's probably been too long. I feel like that ship has sailed. But X8 finally hit the sweet spot for me of the perfect characterization of X. He was voiced by Mark Gatha, who unfortunately isn't doing voice work anymore, but he was the perfect X. I loved his redesign, like the art style in X8. Like, they finally nailed X's characterization after the disaster of X7. And I'm like, you nailed it. And then there's no more now. I want more of this X. I want more of like this characterization of X. But I don't know. Hopefully we'll get something someday. There's X Dive.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried getting into X Dive and it just doesn't hook me.
And me too.
Unfortunately. Like they do all the nostalgia debate with it, like, oh, we're doing this crossover with the classic series. You can get this, you can get that, but it's to me got gotcha elements to it, and I don't know, like the story's not even canon, is it? I don't think it is.
I think it is, yeah. And they treat them as video games in the world of Dive. So it's like, I don't think it's canon. And I mean, I like all the new character art. I think that's probably my favorite part of Dive is all the cool art we're getting from it. But other than that, it's just not grabbing me, and it's not a meaningful step forward for the story and the characters, and that's what I'm here for. So I don't know. Hopefully, we'll get something. I don't know. Capcom is weird. They're firing on all cylinders again, which is great. Like I love the Capcom of 2022 because we're seeing incredibly confident releases like the Resident Evil 8 DLC, and like, oh my God, Street Fighter 6. I played the beta a couple of months ago, and I have not been as excited for a Street Fighter game. I don't even know the last time I was so excited for a new Street Fighter release. And I ended up really liking 5. I thought 5 ended in a good place, or ended up in a good place. I love watching competitive high level play at like Evo and such. But Street Fighter 6 has me excited in a way that I can't even. It's so good. And it's one of the most confident looking projects Capcom has had in quite a while.
Yeah, like I'm really surprised at how they were able to turn around Street Fighter 5, because the hype for it was there. Like when we had the initial betas of Street Fighter 5, and then when it came out, and the way that they handled literally, I mean, the story, the characters, the legacy characters. At one point, we weren't getting Akuma, we weren't getting Sagat, and then next thing you know, here's the paid DLC for them, and then like the gameplay mechanics. Like, for anyone who is going to, and I think we can both confidently say this, but anyone who is playing Street Fighter 5 now, you're not playing the experience that we dealt with at the beginning. It's a very different game.
Definitely not. And I'm loving they're striking such a great balance between redesigns of returning characters, aging them up in a meaningful way. Like Chun-Li looks older in a meaningful way, and I like that. Ryu looks older. Ken is going full, like, he's on the run now. He's having a hard time, going through some problems. He's aged up. And then we've got these like brand new characters like Kimberly, one of the best new designs in any fighting game that I've ever seen. I love her design so much. And I'm like, what are they? This is great. Excuse me, my voice.
No.
That's how excited I'm getting. I'm losing my voice. But like when my wife and I first saw the reveal trailer for Kimberly and Jury, we were like, this is like a whole new side of Capcom that we're seeing.
Yeah.
It's so confident, and I'm so excited.
Yeah. And it's amazing what they've been able to do with the RE engine. Like, you never would have thought when Resident Evil 7 came out that they were going to base a lot of their titles on that engine. And just like, I was concerned, like I was wondering, I was like, okay, with Street Fighter 6, I was like, I know they're probably going to use the RE engine. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And then when they actually revealed it, I was like, oh, they made it work. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and it is crazy because all the hype that came with like King of Fighters 15. I'm a big King of Fighters fan.
Nice.
And I thought that game looked amazing. But after seeing Street Fighter 6,
it's not the same.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, no, I like King of Fighters myself, but in 15 it looks and plays great. I like it a lot. But Yeah, like when you compare that to what they're doing with the RE engine in Street Fighter 6,
Yeah.
it's just different. It's just yeah, it looks so good. But I am glad that KOF 15 continues to have longevity and a healthy
Yeah.
player base and new DLC and such because it is a great game. And I feel like it's a little bit unfairly overlooked sometimes. So
Hmm.
I'm definitely glad that it continues to endure. I'm just waiting for a new Rival Schools. When is Capcom going to give us a new, or at least a Rival Schools collection? I'll take a collection, but that's like one of their most untapped, but I feel like highest potential IPs. It's got such strong character designs, and they're so wacky, but so fun. And I want a new Rival Schools, man.
I mean, they teased us with was it Akira?
Yeah,
And
Akira in Street Fighter 5. Yeah,
I was like, okay, don't do this if you're
I
not gonna
know,
give us.
I know. I wish, but even just a collection, I'd take.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I know we've been like geeking out about Capcom
I know, right?
and Sonic for like the last 25 minutes or so, but okay, so very rude of me, forgive me, but let's dive into Good Vibes Gaming. Let's dive into
All right.
that. Let's dive into like, how you got started, things that you've been doing. Let's just talk. The floor is yours. This is your show now. Let's talk.
All right. Well, yeah, I am, as you're already aware, I'm the creator and co-founder of Good Vibes Gaming, and we are essentially the old Game Explain crew, back reunited under our own brand, under a new umbrella. And yeah, it was essentially, I mean, you know, generally the story of what happened, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
yeah. So, it's no secret that it's me, John, Derek, and Steve were all being heavily exploited back at Game Explain, overworked, severely underpaid, just generally undervalued. And
Yeah.
we finally just, after John left for Nintendo Life, the rest of us, we just kind of hit a breaking point and I went to Steve and Derek and I was like, guys, it's going to suck losing our million plus subscriber audience, but like, what are we doing here? We're putting in all these hours for something that will never be ours. And for someone who clearly doesn't value us or see us as anything more than just contractors, he doesn't even see us as friends anymore. So what are we doing? Let's go do our own thing. And it was scary. One of the scariest things I'd have ever done. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be a co-business owner, I would have laughed in your face. Like, what are you talking about? Definitely not. But here we are. And you know what? It was a incredibly scary thing to do, to strike out on our own. But we made it work. Primarily due to the incredible support of our community. We have, and not just our fans, but also other content creators who really want to see us succeed, and they know what we were put through at Game Explained and know how we were exploited and want better for us. And so we are so incredibly lucky and thankful to all of our friends, all of our fans, really all of gaming YouTube who had our backs, because
Hmm.
we couldn't have done it without everybody. And just, it's been such an incredible journey. And I'll always be thankful to Game Explain and for the effect that had on my career, because for the first several years of GX it was amazing. It wasn't until the latter years that things got not great, but it added so much to my career, and there would be no GVG without GX. So I will always be thankful to that part of my career for sure. But it's just, we had to go and do our own thing and start something new. And I had the idea of GVG kicking around in my head for a couple of years by that point, but I didn't know what form I wanted it to take. I didn't know if it was going to be a blog or a podcast or something, but I had long had the idea of starting some sort of gaming related venture, leading with the principles and the pillars of inclusivity, kindness, anti-bullying, representation, and basically pushing back against that really ugly mentality that gaming is a white boys club. I hate that shit, man. Gaming is
Yeah.
for everybody. It's
Yeah.
always been for everybody, and it always should be for everybody. And I wanted to build a safe space for people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, to come and share in their love of video games with other people with no fear of being judged or bullied or anything like that. And I'm really happy to say and proud to say that I feel as though we have largely succeeded in that. Our community is the best damn community of gamers on the internet. Everyone is so kind and welcoming and just accepting of each other. And that's, so much of the credit for that goes to our fans. It's not just about us running it. It's also, there would be no community without the fans. And they have embraced this idea so wholeheartedly and have helped us build this incredibly diverse, inclusive, wonderful community. And that is what I'm proudest of. So, with GVG, that's what I wanted. And I've had various people reach out to me saying, thank you for giving me a place where I feel I can be my authentic self without having to deal with all the toxic bullshit out there in gaming. And that is exactly what I wanted to build with GVG. And, when we brought John back, when we were finally able to do that, that was like, okay, the circle's complete. Like this is the big moment. Like obviously everything we did to get here was really important too, but now that John's back, we're really back, baby. And now it feels like GVG has truly begun. And so now, I mean, Derek and John are absolutely killing it with their content. And Daniel, our art director, has now started doing his own videos too. And he's doing great videos. Steve and I, of course, we're the ones with full-time jobs outside of this. So we don't do as many videos. We're more on the management. He does like stuff like clerical stuff and payroll and merch and stuff like that. Whereas I do community management, Patreon perk management, stuff like that. But, and the idea is for us to all get to the point where we can do this full time. We want GVG to get, to the point where it pays all of us enough to just do nothing else but GVG. We're not there yet, but, what we have kind of settled into, I think really works for us. We've got our content people, we've got our Patreon people, we've got, everyone firing on all cylinders in their own roles. And it's turned out to be a pretty well-oiled machine for us. We can always improve. And man, if I could find like, an investor who just wanted to throw it, who believes in what we do and our message, who, wants to throw us, maybe, like I was talking to my dad about this the other day, like we're doing so well with the limited resources we have, but we had just some more resources, like $500K that we could use to pay a full staff for a year who's doing nothing but GVG. I truly feel as though we could really explode, but it's just, we need the resources. And right now we don't have them. We're just, a bunch of us have families, kids, rent to pay. So, other jobs we got to do. So we're hoping we get to that point. But even for now, with the limited resources we have, our growth is steady, and our fans and our community they've just been so supportive in everything we've done. And that's basically the GVG, what's going on, the state of GVG, how we got here, where we're going. And we're just getting started, man. We just celebrated we didn't really do much for it. I think because we've all just been too busy, but we just passed our 2-year anniversary. And, 2 years to take a channel from, essentially, and you probably already know this, John donated his old channel to us that he wasn't using when he was in Nintendo Life, to give us basically a head start of about 30,000 subscribers, many of whom are already Game Explain fans, so would already want to see what we're doing next. So I'll always be incredibly thankful to him for that. But we've essentially been able to take, his channel, which is now rebranded into Good Vibes Gaming, from 30K to 115K in 2 years. And I'm pretty proud of that. Like that's
phenomenal.
I'm really proud of that. And, that's with limited resources. So I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And I could never have done any of this alone. It is completely a team effort. I have so much love and respect for Derek, Steve, John, Brandon, and Daniel, and every single one of our fans. None of this happens without everybody. And I'm just so thankful to have such amazing colleagues and friends.
And I'm glad you gave like the behind the scenes on like the journey, because a lot of people, and I frequently say this, a lot of people who watch the content that we put out, they don't see the journey. They don't see everything that goes into it. They don't see how much of yourself that you're putting into, you're sacrificing for the end product that they watch. And there's a lot, like it's a lot of behind the scenes. Making content is not easy at all. Anyone, it's so funny because a lot of people here in Hawaii, like when they find out that I do, content creating, YouTube podcasting and such, they'll be like, oh, so you play on the internet, you just hit record and go. And I'm like, it is not that. It is not that at all.
Yeah. No, it's like people when you tell people that you work in games doing anything, they're just like, oh, so you just play video games all day. What a cool job. And it's like, no, That is not what it's all about. It's, playing a game that you're doing coverage for is completely different than playing a game you just playing because you want to, playing casually.
Yeah.
It's a completely different thing. It feels much more like a job. And yeah, as you said, content creation isn't easy. And it's kind of like game development. There are so many armchair critics and commentators out there who are like, oh,
Yeah.
why can't they just port X to Y, or do this or do that? That would have been so easy. Game development is not easy. Do you have any idea? I feel like some people just think there is a content creation or a game development button that you press and the work is just done. And it's like, no, that is not at all how this works. Not at all.
No,
Yeah,
not
I
at all.
totally hear you.
It's so crazy because, like, let's use Silent Hill 2 as an example. So we got the remake coming
Hell
out.
yeah.
There's so many people that are like, why can't they just port the PlayStation 2 version of Silent Hill 2 and 3? Why don't they just do that? I'm like, one, source code is lost, which is why we had the HD collection, which
Yeah,
if you like that, but two, at this point, instead of porting and like trying to figure out how to do that, just make a new one. And I know a lot of people don't care for Blooper Team. I'm optimistic. It looked good.
I think so. I think what might make the difference there is that, Bloober Team aren't being commissioned to come up with their own story for a new Silent Hill game.
Yeah.
They're taking an incredible framework, an existing framework that people already love, and they're just building new assets on top of it, which is still a tremendous amount of work. I don't want to downplay the work they're doing, but I think maybe the fact that they're not creatively involved and they're just involved in the production of the new assets, the visuals and everything. They're not changing the story from what I can tell, and so I think that might be a recipe for success here. You stick with what worked in the original Silent Hill 2, but then you outsource the development of a 2022 4K version to Bloober Team. And I think what we saw looks good. And Konami do seem to be pretty involved. They seem to be like fairly like hands-on in terms of they care about how this turns out. I'd never thought I'd be praising Konami in the year 2022, but here we are. And I was really happy with how much they seem to care about the integrity of the Silent Hill IP in that presentation we got recently. So, and then we've gotten other stuff like the Cowabunga collection and Shredder's Revenge. I know, of course, they weren't developed by Konami, but they had to sign off. And so I'm really happy with where Konami's headed, and I agree with you on Silent Hill 2. I think Bloober Team seems like they're doing a great job so far, and I'm excited.
And I don't know when it's going to come out. Like, I assume it'll be out within the next maybe 2 years or so, maybe even next year. I don't know.
I'm thinking late next year. I feel like maybe around Halloween next year might be around when we might see this.
Oh, that would be perfect.
That might be. I would love that. But I feel like by the end of next year, we'll probably have it. Silent Hill F or Sharp, or what was F, not Sharp. It is Silent Hill F. Who knows when we'll see that? But 2, I feel like we might see next year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the game they want to get out first.
Yeah,
just to get the goodwill back, which is interesting. A lot of people like to say that Konami doesn't really make games anymore, and I'm like, really? If you look at what Konami has been putting out for maybe the last 3 or so years, we've got the Castlevania collection. We've got 3 different Castlevania collections.
Yeah,
one. We got the Contra collection. They did make that newer Contra game, which is
that wasn't great. Yeah.
But they also have made some other titles as well. Nothing major, but they've been making games. And I know the timing was, some people think it was odd with them, announcing this Suikoden HD collection. I've seen a lot of people upset about that because they're like, oh, they're taking away from Euden Chronicle. I'm like, give me both.
Yeah. Why not both? Yeah, I'll take both. Sure. I don't really see why it has to be one or the other. I mean, I can see why you might be, you might be feeling a little offended for the Euden Chronicles devs, just because Konami obviously have so much more recognition behind them. And if it is intentional, I do think that is a little bit messed up, because it's not as though Euden Chronicle has any, represents any sort of threat to Konami. So if it is intentional, I think it is messed up, but I still say, why not both? I'd rather have Euden and Suikoden 1 and 2 remakes than not than just one of those things. So
Yeah, because I mean, for anyone who wants to play Suikoden 1 and 2, good luck
yeah,
finding a physical
exactly.
copy of
Yeah,
those.
yeah. I would someday like to see them do, since clearly they did such a great job with the Cowabunga collection. I
Yeah.
would, or Digital Eclipse did, but Konami obviously, signed off on that. I would like to see them work with Digital Eclipse on a Warner Brothers platformer, or Warner Brothers game collection. So like Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, all the
Ooh.
IPs from the 90s. Because there were some great games in the Tiny Toons and
Yeah.
Animaniacs IPs and Tasmania, stuff like that. I
Yeah.
want the Warner Brothers Saturday like morning cartoon collection, kind of like the Disney afternoon collection, but
Yeah.
just for Warner Brothers cartoons, because I want to
Yeah.
play those great Animaniacs and Tiny Toons games again.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely, and it, who knows?
Yeah.
We might see it. Like at this point in gaming, like the way the industry has been going, I've been surprised more within the last several years than I have in the last decade. So I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
you never know. You never
Yeah.
know at all.
You sure don't.
So I want to go back to to talking about Good Vibes Gaming and talking about like the process going into, because you guys do a ton of content, from reviews, get the live streams,
Yeah.
stuff you do with the community. So for, I guess, and this could be like you giving advice as a senior content creator, for anyone who is looking to either get into content creating, or
Mhm.
someone who is looking to do like a uh I guess a group collective, like similar to what you guys are doing, how much, what advice would you give them, and how much work realistically should they expect? Because I think a lot of people have this idea of this is easy, like we were talking about earlier, or
Mhm.
it's no work, or they have the idea that it goes into we need the perfect equipment before we start and do anything. I personally tell people just start. You'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
But
I would agree with that. I think just start. It's so easy to get hung up in the, well, hows or ifs or whens, like, and it's so easy to give yourself any number of excuses in terms of why you haven't started yet. Oh, it's not the right time. I'm too busy. I don't have the right equipment. No, I'd say just start, and then find your voice, figure out your style, your personal approach, and go from there. Excuse me, my voice again.
no, that's fine.
Um,
Mhm.
I would say just start. Starting is more important than anything, but and you also have to decide what kind of venture is this for you. If you're doing it for yourself as kind of a fun side gig, that's totally fine. Then there's a
Mhm.
lot less pressure there. But for us, we wanted to parlay the brand we had built for ourselves at Game Explain into our own venture, in terms of something that we can hopefully all make full-time income from someday. So there is a lot riding on this in terms of, there being enough money to do this, and setting up a Patreon that makes enough money for us to keep doing what we do, and building a subscriber base such that we get enough ad rev to keep doing what we do. So it's different for us. We were looking to make a venture out of this, to make our own brand, our own business out of this, which introduces so much more pressure and so many
Yeah.
more elements of, you got to set up a business bank account, you got to set up a Patreon, you got to look at your bank account and run the numbers each month. And then that's why I said Steve and I are more in the management role. So he does payroll and all that stuff, while I do Patreon perk management. And that works really well because we all have our own roles, and there's no one person doing it all. Because if you are really trying to build a brand, so much work goes into that, and I don't know how any one person could do it all. That's not to say they haven't, but I think even a lot of the giant content creators, like the biggest ones, like Gerard the completionist and Scott the Woz, once they got to a certain point, they brought in help to manage their brand because they couldn't do it all by themselves. I don't see how any one person could, frankly. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think it's just different. What do you want out of it? Is it a side gig that you're going to work on and maybe hope turns into something bigger someday? Well, then great. Then there's a lot less pressure. And what I would say is make the content you want to make. and go from there. Don't make what you think other people want, because you'll burn out. If it's not something that you care about, if you're not passionate, then you're just, basically becoming a content machine. And that is exactly why we all left Game Explainer. One of the reasons, because we were just content factories. We weren't, we didn't get to make what we wanted to make. And it was very clear that we were just churning out content that we didn't personally care about that much.
Yeah.
And so one of the main things for us at GVG was like, we want to make the content and do the kind of stuff that we want to do. We want to be on camera more. We want to, let our personalities shine through and be wacky and do silly things like bathtub streams. Like we didn't want it to be just like a cold hard news outlet. We wanted to be more, we wanted to lean into our performer side more than just content creator or journalist side, right? We wanted to perform for people because people liked that at Game Explain when we were allowed to do it. And so I think it's just, you have to really, it's so important to lead with making what you want to make and finding your own unique individual voice, because people will latch onto that. It might take a while, and you might have trouble finding an audience at first, but there are people out there who are looking for your voice and your individual take and approach on things. And if you find them, that's how it starts. And, it's all relative. There are people for whom 5,000 subscribers, 2,000, 500, those are all milestones in their own way. It's all relative. Like, it doesn't just have to be, you don't matter unless you're 100K or 1 million or more. Like, celebrate your own milestones. Like, and I'm saying this coming from a channel where I had an audience of over 1 million subscribers. 100,000 was a huge milestone for us because it was our milestone. It wasn't helping somebody else get to their milestone. It was ours. And so it's all relative. Take it one day at a time, one subscriber at a time, and make the content you want to make, because you'll burn out if you're only doing what other people want you to do, or what you think other people want you to do.
I fully agree with you. Like, in a sense of like with this, like, so for me with content creating, my full-time gig is podcasting. That's primarily like where my full-time income comes. I used to do IT for like 12 years.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
I left IT back in 2019. I was a senior systems analyst. I did like InfoSec and all that, telephony as well, because they like, oh yeah, we need you to do telephony as well because we don't have the budget to get someone else. I'm like, really? So I need to do your data entry, your security, make sure I was desktop. Yeah, I and it's for the hospitals out here for Hawaii Pacific Health. So I had to go do all the hospitals on here in Oahu. I had to go to Kauai to do the clinic and hospital they have there, Big Island, and then wherever else they need me to go. Plus, fly off the island for training. So, like, I was doing, when I started building this brand and all the content I was doing that full time. So I was doing 16, 17-hour days. Then, I at one point I was trying to do the content creating machine thing, and I burnt out with that because I was like, I can't do that. And then I shifted to I covered the games I wanted to, covered the tech I wanted to, and over time doing the podcast, that has allowed me to network with amazing people, yourself, Steve, other companies, other individuals, and that allowed me to make a living off of that. Now, granted, it's not easy. I don't make anywhere as much as I used to make in IT, right? But I do well at the podcast, and then with focusing on the YouTube aspect of it, and I try to explain to people, like, I'm a one-man team. Like, I do my own videos. I write my own reviews for my website. I do the podcast. I try to reach out, network, and work with different companies. And it's not easy because there's not enough time in the day. Plus, I'm a stay-at-home dad with my 18-month-old who is she's going into the terrible twos category. So, doing that, it's not easy. And there are times where it just feels overwhelming, but I've gotten to a point now, like, I made it to, I'm at 15,700 or so subscribers now. And I made it to that within the last year and a half. And my next goal is 20,000. Now I want to hit 50. Now I want to hit 100.
Hell yeah.
And I understand, like, for me, it's slower than other people I see, but I'm like, I'm not competing with anyone else.
Right.
Like, exactly. I'm going at the pace I can. And if I can get to a point where, because I I speak at University Hawaii, like the various campuses out here, as well as Chaminade University and Hawaii Pacific University. They'll call me in to like speak to students who are interested in content creating, because there are not a lot of because I'm also Hawaiian. I'm Hawaiian, Black, Jamaican, Samoan, but there's not a lot of Polynesian content creators here that are like doing stuff with major brands or doing stuff in the sense of content creating beyond like, they'll do something here. Like we got Twitch Hawaii, but they're not really, and no shade to them, but they're not doing big.
Right.
And so like there's myself, there's Bretman Rock, who's also here in Hawaii, and maybe 2 or 3 other people doing, they have a larger following. So, we'll get called in to speak to the universities about content creating. And when I speak to the students, I tell them it's not easy. It's an investment. It's an investment in time. And if anything, I would always recommend start off doing it as a hobby. And if you can gain traction and you want to turn into something more, definitely do that. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, especially if you're doing this by yourself. It's not easy.
Not easy at all.
No. And I've considered, because there are younger Polynesian content creators out here that want to, they want to do this. And I've been considering making a team out here of different creators to bring in to teach them, how to reach out to companies, how to do this, how to do that. It's just, for me, like, I wish I had the friendship and teams like that you guys have at Good Vibes Gaming, because I don't have that out here. Because folks that I've worked with, and I've tried to get them connected, I do the handshake handoff. Like, if I'm introducing them to a company, I'll do that. And, when it comes to game codes or whatnot, I've tried doing that, and it's not easy because people will take a code and like, oh yeah, I don't need to play. I don't like this game. I don't need to play it. Oh
yeah,
I don't need to make content for it. No, you can't do that. And it's like, I want to do what you guys are doing, like for people here in Hawaii, but it's just, for me, it's just too many roadblocks I'm running into. But there's big value. I feel like there's potential here. And I know a lot of companies want to work with creators here in Hawaii, but it's just, we're not there yet. We'll get there. Yeah. We're not there yet.
Well, we're very privileged and lucky to have had the very unique kind of path that we have, because, we had basically a decade at Game Explain to forge those bonds, to forge those friendships. So it only made sense for us to then go and do our own thing, our own new thing together. And, I mean, you know just as well as I do how hard it is to make and meet new friends as an adult. It's very hard. So I'm really lucky that I have these amazing people that I've been working alongside for a decade already at Game Explain. And so that enabled us to move forward together and chart our own path forward together, because I don't think any of us could have done something like GVG by ourselves. I don't think, and I think they would agree. I don't want to speak for them, but I think they would all agree that GVG would not be a thing if it wasn't for the team effort that we've been able to, make happen here. And, having partners makes all the difference. It really does. It's so much harder to go it alone. And so hats off to you. I probably shouldn't take my actual hat off because my hair is a mess today, but proverbial hats off to you for making it as far as you have as a one-man operation, because it is not easy. Even as a group, we're all working like crazy. So to do what you've done by yourself and build your own brand up as much as you have on your own is incredibly commendable.
Thank you. I have to say, I have a bone to pick with Square Enix, because all the titles they've been dropping back to back, and they're like, oh, here's a review code for this. I'm doing that. Like, all the major titles have come out within the last 3 months. I've covered everything. And like I said, like we actually, so we just moved into this condo here that we bought. We bought this condo here in Waikiki, and we sold off our house. So September 1st, we moved here, and I got sick when we moved. I was trying to make content, and I got over that, and then I came down again with pneumonia. And it's crazy, because it's like all these games that have been coming out, it's almost like there's a new game every single week. And I've dialed back to covering games I'm interested in, which, you know, I cover Call of Duty, covered all the Square Enix games. All these games that are long, I have a bone to pick with Square Enix as well as gaming in general. Look, all these games are. Can I have some nice short games,
Yeah,
please?
I hear you. I so
Please?
hear you on that, which is one reason that I'm really enjoying Sonic Frontiers. I think is because obviously there's a lot of content there, but it is a lot more just tractable, I guess, in an overall sense. Like it doesn't feel endless. Like another game I'm working on and chipping away at right now, and I love this game to death, but it is maybe just too big. Is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm loving it. The story and characters are maybe the series best, but I've been stuck in at the beginning, early parts of chapter 6 for like almost 3 weeks now because there are endless side
Yeah.
quests, and the side quests are really
Yes.
good. I don't want to miss them because I don't want to ignore them because they are genuinely great, especially the hero quests. But there are too many of them, and I can't make any
Yeah.
progress in the story. And I'm like, I don't need games to be. And I know Xenoblade, they're obviously meant to be hundreds of hours long if you want to do everything, and I get that. But I just mean so many games that I think these days, I agree with you, could do with just rein it in a bit, rein the content in a
Yeah.
little bit. They don't need to be 90-hour experiences.
Yeah.
20 hours, 30 hours, 10
Yeah.
hours. Like I love having more bite-sized experiences. That's one of the reasons I loved Live Alive. Live Alive was such a
Yes.
breath of fresh air because it was great. I felt like I had this really epic quest and full-throated experience in 25 to 30 hours. And that's with doing everything and getting the true ending. And I'm like, that's so refreshing. I've played this game for
Yeah.
30 hours. I've seen everything and I'm done. And I can move on
Yeah.
to the next game instead of it being just this endless chipping away at just content.
Yeah. 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 And it goes back to what you said earlier. Like a lot of people don't understand is when it comes to making like playing a game for a review and making content versus playing it for leisure, they're very different. It's
Very
not,
different.
you don't have the same mindset. And it's, you know, like a lot of my audience and people I talk to out here, they're like, oh man, have you played that? What do you think of this? And like, did you have fun with it? Yeah, but I'm not playing it for fun. I'm playing it for a review. And it's
Yeah.
like you have deadlines, then trying to get something out within relative time of it being relevant. Like
Yeah.
that's also, I feel like, I know we're getting pressed for time, but like I know that for us, when we were growing up, games had lasting appeal far longer than they do now. Like now it feels like if a game is 2 weeks old or longer, it's considered an old game because
Yeah, and I
attention
hate that.
spans now.
Yeah.
I loathe
I hate
it.
that mentality. It's yeah, I mean, and maybe that's just a function of when we grew up and the generation we're part of. But like, I constantly found myself going back to, or at least when I had the time, I constantly found myself going back to 8-bit and 16-bit and 32-bit games way more than I do modern games. And that's not because I'm not saying, oh, back in my day, games were so much better. Games are amazing. Like I'm not saying that, but there's just something about the mentality, I think, of people from our generation where we don't feel like once a game is 2 weeks old that it's old hat. Like
Yeah.
we have a lot of love for the games that we grew up with, and they're still relevant to us today. And yeah, I hate that whole like once something's there and it's out, give it a week or two and it's old hat and nobody's talking about it anymore. It's just that's so game development is too hard and takes too long and requires too many people's blood, sweat, and tears for them to just be brushed aside like that a couple of weeks after they come out. Or in some cases, it's not even a time frame thing. It's if you're unlucky enough to release in the shadow of something much bigger, and this applies to even other AAA games. I hate what happened to Guerrilla Games twice in a row now with Horizon.
Yeah.
Because first it happened with Breath of the Wild with Horizon Zero Dawn, and then it happened again with Elden Ring with Horizon Forbidden West. And these games are great. I love the Horizon series. But Horizon Forbidden West didn't even get 2 weeks to be relevant. It was rendered immediately irrelevant just because everybody was talking about Elden Ring and there was no room for both. And I hate that mentality. Like, it just frustrates me so much.
Yeah, it's insane. And I feel like it's never going to get better. I feel like
No.
I feel like that time frame, that window is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And like, you know, as well as I do, like the amount of work these developers put it is
Yeah.
developers, the sound team, the art direction
Everyone.
team, the
Yeah.
writers, like everyone. There's so much that goes into it. And I just hope, as a takeaway for people who watch this or listen to it, you know, if you're a gamer, understand, yeah, these games come out and they're 60 or 70 or whatever, you know, they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to keep going up or not, but you know, a lot of people worked on that.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate for that time span of a week or two and it's old and people aren't talking about it. People pour their lives into this.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I think we should respect that, you know, as gamers, because we've got it good
100%.
now compared to when we were growing up.
God, we really do. And I sometimes think about what it would be like to be a kid with a bunch of free time in the age of Game Pass.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine, because I remember I would, I'd play and finish one Super Nintendo game, and then I'd be replaying that one super, or the games I had, until another one came out that I could afford with my allowance money, or that I could ask my parents for like my birthday or something. But it's not as though, we had anything like Game Pass where you're paying a little, 20, $25 a month for hundreds of games at your fingertips whenever you want them. It's such a completely different mentality now.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to ask before we wrap this up is Steam Deck. What's your thoughts
Yes.
on it?
I don't have one. I'm not really the market for a Steam Deck, only because I'm not a big PC. I've never been a big PC gamer. I've always been a console guy. So I see the appeal of it, and especially now that I'm on a gaming capable PC for all my GVG work, I can certainly see the appeal, of building a Steam library and then having that to hook up to the TV and stuff. But I don't know. I guess maybe I'm a little bit too old school in my thinking, but I've always been perfectly happy with consoles, and I'm not a big fan of like having to optimize settings or worry about all that stuff. Like when I get a PS5 or a Switch or whatever, I know that more or less, not always, but more or less, the games I'm getting for those consoles are gonna be optimized for those consoles. That's not true across the board, of course, but I just like the convenience of consoles. And I've got a 65-inch OLED, LG OLED in my living room. I want to play games on that. I don't want to play games where I work on my gaming PC.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool from what I've been told, and people seem to really like it. I did get to play one for a little bit a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was great. A little bit chunky, but it makes sense. But yeah, I'm just not really the market, or the core market, I think, for a Steam Deck. So it's hard for me to comment too much on it.
I know a lot of people like to compare it to the Switch, and I know that was, unfortunately, in the Steam Deck community, I shake my head at this, but unfortunately, that was like a topic where they're like, "Oh, don't get a Switch because the Steam Deck is so much better." And
It's
I'm
the
like,
Switch killer. Okay. I hate the blank killer. I hate that rhetoric so much. It's this, oh man, Multiverses is the Smash Brothers killer. The Steam Deck is the Switch killer. Shut up, man. Come on. Jeez, there's room for both. They could both be really good at what they do. It's fine.
Yeah. And I know like you get all the optimization options and all that. That's cool, but I don't know. I feel like getting older. Like I think I just how old am I? I'm 34. I just turned 34. So I'm at a point now where I just want to pick something up and play it. And the only optimization I really want to deal with is what I get with the PlayStation 4 or 5 and the Xbox Series X and X is, do I want to optimize performance or frame rate?
That's all I want to worry about. I don't want to have to worry about individuals. I don't want to have to futz with that. Yeah, completely agree. So, yeah, that's why there's not a Steam Deck in my future. I don't think. Maybe someday, but I don't have enough of a Steam library for it to really matter, I don't think. And I'm fine with that. I'm just more of a console guy, and it's just what I know, what I'm comfortable with. One thing I did want to mention, though, before we wrap up, you mentioned like 10 minutes ago that you had a bone to pick with Square Enix. And I do too, a completely different bone, but a bone nonetheless. And that is, in the same damn week, we got all the Silent Hill announcements. We got that badass new Resident Evil 8 DLC trailer. They also trademarked Symbiogenesis. And we were all thinking like, oh man, Parasite Eve, is it time? Are they really bringing it back? And like, I knew it probably wasn't going to be what we all would have wanted as Parasite Eve fans, but I didn't think it was going to be the worst literally the worst case scenario of it being a goddamn NFT thing. I'm still so upset. I feel personally attacked by Square Enix as a Parasite Eve fan that's what Symbiogenesis ended up being. And I just had to have my rant about that. Rant over, but Square Enix, do something with Parasite Eve, damn it. Come on. An over-the-shoulder remake, like a Resident Evil 2 remake style of Parasite Eve 1, I just can't even.
Yeah.
It's almost too good to even think about. Like, it could be so great.
Yeah.
I just want them to do something with Parasite Eve so badly.
Yeah. And I know we could probably do another podcast and talk about this, but yeah, the whole thing with the gaming industry pushing towards NFT and crypto, we're seeing crypto crash.
Yeah.
NFTs, like people keep saying like that, blockchain technology is going to be something that's going to actually work. I haven't seen anything with that personally that works. And the Symbiogenesis one, I was hyped because I was like, okay, they're bringing it back.
Yeah.
We can finally wipe away the memory of Third Birthday and get something.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get something. And then when it was NFT thing, I logged off of Twitter. I'm like, I'm done for the day.
Yeah. That was, I like to say that I'm glad there were ever only 2 Parasite Eve games because we don't talk about or acknowledge the Third Birthday. We just don't. There was never a Third Birthday. Yeah.
No. All that being said, is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we go? Anything you're working on? And definitely plug everything that you have.
Well, I mean, you've already given me the floor to talk so much about Good Vibes Gaming, so I super appreciate that, and that's essentially, that's my baby. That's what I'm working on. You can find us on YouTube at Good Vibes Gaming, Patreon. It's patreon.com/GV Gaming. We offer a wide variety of tiers you can support us at, starting at just $1 a month, which gets you into our Discord community. And that's not, by the way, because we think people should have to pay to be in our community. It's because it's just to ward off bad faith actors and trolls, and it's worked. It's actually worked. Yeah. So just the $1 paywall gets you into the community, and it's a great place to be. One of our most popular tiers is our executive producer tier. It's $25 a month, but that gets you, you get to hang out with all of us founders twice a month and play various games. You get to be part of our live audience and chat with us during streams and such. Suggest topics for us to talk about on our weekly GVG cast. Plenty of other perks. We've also got another popular tier called Fight a Founder, which you can just basically book one of us founders to play whatever game or games you want every month in a private session. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, check us out on Patreon. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Good Vibes Gaming. And like I said, it's me, John, Derek, and Steve from Game Explain doing our own thing and having full creative control and being the masters of our own destiny, essentially. So we're having a great time doing it. And we've picked up Brandon and Daniel, who are amazing new crew members, part of our team. We love them to death. So yeah, just check us out. We really appreciate it. And you can find me on Twitter, by the way, at least for now, unless Musk completely tanks it in the next few weeks. But I am on Twitter, twitter.com/Ash Paulsen, just my name, ASHPAULSEN. Follow me. I just basically talk about video games, food, dogs, video game music, basically it. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter as well.
Awesome. I'll leave the links to everything down in the description below. Thank you again, Ash, for coming on the show. I know this is a long time coming, and for the next episode, glad you did it. Right. And I'm so grateful. I want to shout out a company because this is how we got connected, and I didn't mention it in the podcast at the beginning, but big thank you to Safe in Our World, because that's who linked us initially. Right. How we got this going, and I appreciate them for what they do. They are Absolutely. amazing for what they do, and for connecting us. Very grateful. The next time we do this will not take as long, people, we swear, but yes. This is worth it. This is fun.
Yeah.
You can find this episode of either podcast, because it's going to be on both Cast Nova Podcast and Decked Up on all major podcasting outlets, so Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, yeah, Google Podcasts, all that. All links for everything is going to be down in the description below. And we got merch, got Patreon, all that support if you want to. And we'll see you on the next one. Stay safe and be blessed.
Bye.